So all government contractors eventually pursue contract vehicles. I think if you've been in this long enough, you know that people tell you that a lot of the purchases get done on contract vehicles. What they are is a whole separate training that I've done. I've got a blog out there that I can share. But really the question is, which contract vehicles should you get on? That's the big question small businesses have. Which contract vehicles should I get on? And then how can you find those contract vehicles to pursue? And that's what I'm going to sit there and teach today. In today's training, I'm going to cover down on how to do that and how to find the top contract vehicles for you. I'm going to give you the process that's out there. I did want to mention, though, I'm going to come across like I know what I'm talking about, right? But I haven't always known what I was talking about. And really, this goes back into when I was a government contractor myself. I used to get embarrassed by being in meetings, especially in meetings with large prime contractors. And they would say, well, are you on this vehicle or do you know about that vehicle? And not only was I not on it, but I didn't even know what the heck they were talking about. I'm like, no, is that a name? Is that a vehicle? What is that? And I used to feel embarrassed when they would say that I didn't know the contract vehicle they were talking about. That is, until I had sold my last company and I started the GovCon Chamber and I really started training everybody about what's out there. There's over 400,000 contract vehicles out there. They cover down in these 4 categories, and you can go watch a blog. I'll show you in a minute, a blog I wrote, and you can go take a look at it. But basically, if you've heard this term best-in-class contract vehicles, this is a tier 3 set of contract vehicles, very small, like around 40 contract vehicles. And then there's tier 2, tier 1, and tier 0. And tier 0 is that Wild West area. And once I realized how many contract vehicles were out there, first off, I stopped being embarrassed. And then I started realizing, wow, I'm not even beginning to touch on the contract vehicles. We all hear about GSA. Oh, are you on the GSA schedule? Are you on MASS or something? And then maybe you start hearing about bigger contract vehicles. If you're talking to anybody in the Navy, somebody's going to say right out of the gate, well, you should be on Seaport Next Gen if you do primarily this type of work. And so what I want you to remember is there's so much all of us don't know. I can go into an agency that has a contract vehicle and contracting officers won't even be aware of it because there's that much activity in their world as well. So it's our job to go find it. And that's what I'm going to teach you today is how to find these contract vehicles. Really quick, before I switch over to my slides, just want to say this is the blog I did a while ago. I don't know if somebody can grab this. I can't grab it right now while I do training and push it over. But this is the 41 best-in-class contract vehicles. It's a little older, obviously 2019. But this article talks about how big the contract vehicle pool is and teaches you a lot about it if you're unaware. And right here, I put GWAC in tier 3. Forget about that. Don't come back and talk to me. Just GWACs are government-wide. That's different than tier 3 is best in class. Everything else, though, is really spot on. And by the way, I started the GovCon Chamber. It was called the Hub Zone Chamber back then. So a lot of different stuff. If somebody can grab it, the blog is best in class contract vehicles. Okay, so let me get over to my deck. Where is my deck? There it is. Okay, so in today's training, I'm going to cover down on 3 main topics. First, I just want to start off with helping you understand that when you're thinking about going after a contract vehicle and you're trying to figure out what your top contract vehicles could be, you need to really think about your criteria. What are you looking for from a contract vehicle? If you come into the federal space and try to sell everything, even if you're sticking to IT and you try to sell everything, there's just too much. And so really narrow down your criteria. We're going to talk about that. Then I'm going to talk briefly about how to find contract vehicles, and then I'll go show you how I find them. And literally today, I'll use a real customer I have right now and use some of their needs to find contract vehicles that literally after this training, I'm going to put some of the best ones into their pipeline and give them guidance on how to pursue them. And then the third thing I'll wrap up with, we'll spend a little less time on this, but how do you set a multi-year plan, right? I'm not here to teach you how to make money in the next 30 days. That's not today's training, right? Literally in government contracting, that's not actually something you should be tracking on. But government contracting is the long game, and you should be thinking in years. And so I want to talk about how you can put contract vehicles in particular into a multi-year plan. Everybody should be thinking about many contract vehicles, not one big one, because if you miss that big one, you're out of the game. But if you set a multi-year plan that has multiple vehicles, then you're going to be able to achieve success. So that's what we're going to talk about today. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonough. I want to welcome you to my federal sales training, where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years in the federal market as a small business owner, and since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret, it's just a process. When we follow a process A to Z, we're going to have repeatable, predictable results. And that's what I want for you on a day-to-day basis. And today, that's what I want to teach you, is some repeatable, predictable activity around the process around finding contract vehicles that'll work for you. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and sign up for our newsletter. It's called the Government Contracting Success Newsletter. It is the largest government contracting newsletter on LinkedIn by far. And every day we're growing because we provide very valuable information to you. For example, this morning's newsletter issue was around how to sign up for the Army Contracting Command Aberdeen Proving Ground Contracting Center, how to sign up for their supplier portal so that you can be where the buyers are. I provide step-by-step guidance so that it'll take you like 2 to 5 minutes at most to get in there. And now you're visible to the buyers when they're looking using their own tool. So definitely make sure you sign up for the newsletter. I wanted to thank those of you who registered for training. We had over 125 people or something registered for today's training. When you do that, first off, it's the easiest way for you to say thanks to me and my team for putting this together every day. And the other thing is, when you do it, LinkedIn can remind you and remind others that we've got a great event going on for federal sales training. So you should join us, right? So thank you for those registering. And then the last thing is just hit the bell on my profile if you're not familiar, on anybody on LinkedIn that you want to follow their content. And I only put out government contracting sales related content. If you want to follow my content, make sure you hit the bell and LinkedIn will make sure you're notified. Okay, let's get rocking and rolling into the criteria. Before you start searching for contract vehicles, before we start doing what I'm about to do, we want to know our criteria for what's the contract vehicle look like that we want to go after. You don't need to know everything, but you need to have a general high idea. So here are 4 tips. First thing is know which agency you're targeting. It's a pretty simple thing, but an example is if you're an 8A small business, the Army is the biggest spender by far. And you can go check that out. The data backs it up. But the Army is the biggest agency that loves and proves that with money 8A small businesses. And so I might target the Army, which I'm going to, and I'll show you today, looking in there and say, okay, I want to go into the Army. You might pick a couple. You might say the Army and the Air Force, the Army and Department of Education, whatever it is. Don't look everywhere. Try to narrow the search down to a couple of agencies. The next thing is define your core competency, that clear, focused offer of what you sell. You want to be able to just know that when I'm going into search, I don't want to let the search take me places. I want to make the search deliver the results of what I want. I want to sell more of this, so I'm going to try to find contract vehicles that do that. And I'll show you how to do that, or how I do it. And then the third tip is to make sure you identify top keywords. These are keywords or key phrases that align to your core competency. We describe this as findable. If somebody's trying to find you, what keywords would they search to find you in your business? If you're a plumbing business, obviously plumbing is one, but maybe faucet repair or leak might be a keyword you're trying to do, right? And it's the same way when you're trying to find a contract vehicle. You want to go look for the top keywords somebody might have in their requirement, their agency requirement for a contract vehicle. And so know those top 5 keywords that your buyers find your company on. And then it can be the same thing with a phrase. When I say a keyword or a phrase, a keyword might be deaf, right? A phrase might be American Sign Language. So that's American Sign Language interpreters, et cetera. Or a keyword related to that might be interpreters. And then ASL, American Sign Language, is a key phrase. It's just a little longer in there, but it's still a key phrase or keyword that describes your core competency. And the last thing is just make sure you identify a couple of NAICS, no more than 2 that are used. I don't actually like searching on those, but I think it's important that you know what are the top NAICS used for what you sell. And so you just pick 2. The reality is when you try to search on something on NAICS, and I'll probably show you this, you get too many results and you're going to have to narrow it down. And the only way to narrow it down is the keywords. All right, so that's before the search, know your criteria. You need to write yours down. And I would recommend if you're sitting around your desk and you got time to write it down as I'm showing you stuff, write it down on a piece of paper. So how do you find contract vehicles? You set the criteria for the contract vehicles you want. First way is definitely ask, right? You can go into SAM and everywhere else and USAspending, et cetera, but first ask. You should be having a relationship already with a small business specialist before you ever start thinking about a contract vehicle. Long before you ever need a contract vehicle, you should have established a relationship with a small business specialist to understand how to successfully do business with their agency, et cetera. That's very early in the relationship with an agency, very early in that process. And so you want to have those relationships in place. Because you have them in place, it's one of the easiest questions to ask a contracting officer or a small business professional. What are the top 2 or 3 contract vehicles you use? So an example is, if you ask this of a small business specialist in the Navy, pretty guaranteed one of the very first ones, I would say 80-20, 80% of the people will say Navy Seaport Next Gen. Seaport Next Gen is the number one vehicle we use. Even though you might be doing construction or something else, they'll still say Seaport Next Gen, because that is one of the most well-known contract vehicles. And so you can get those out of the way by asking them. And the goal is you want them to tell you 2 or 3. Generally, they run out of steam after 2 or 3. The reality, though, is you can go search and you can start learning this. And the places you learn, the places you search, are the government's tools. So I like USAspending. It's very easy to use. Once you get a good handle on it, it's very easy to use. Its data comes from FPDS specifically. And so you can go into FPDS and learn. You can go into SAM and find other information. But for today's training, and really, if I just keep doing this, I'm only going to use USAspending. I just wanted to let you know that you could use FPDS. You could use SAM to learn some of this information. But USAspending by far is the easiest way. So I'm going to go in there. This is just quick steps. I'm going to go in there and search on those keywords and phrases. I'll show you that. Then I'm going to review this bulk list. And you'll see I'll get a bunch of contract vehicles coming back. And as they come back, I start looking at them and trying to see which ones do I like. And so I'm going to review that bulk list of contract vehicles that are coming back. And then the final step I'm going to show you today, which is one of my favorite things to do, is I just track my competitors who are winning. And I go, well, where are you winning? What are you winning? What vehicles are you on? And I'm pursuing that, and I'm learning from my competitor. Why should I go back to the very beginning if I can learn from my competitor? So I'm going to show you how to look at your competitor and gain some insight there. So before I go to the last multi-year plan, let's just go over and make this happen. So I'm going to come in here, and we're going to get started on USAspending. And by the way, this is not a training for USAspending, so I'm going to go pretty fast, but I talk about this all the time. You can go in and just take the help on USAspending, and it teaches you how to use it. But the replay on this is immediately available, so you can come back. By the way, if you're feeling generous, in the chat, put the target agency you're targeting. This lets other people know, and you're able to network out there. Okay, I'm going to hit on Start Search. And the first thing I'm going to do, nothing else, is we're just going to start with what I'm looking for as a keyword, key phrase. And I want it to be American Sign Language. I'm going to hit enter, and I got a keyword I just typed in right there. So now when I hit Submit Search, a whole bunch of results are going to come back. So right here, and there's a lot in USAspending. I'm just going to narrow down on the parts I'm trying to show you. But right here, you have contracts. These are basically task orders and the work to be done. Contract vehicles are not the work to be done. They're the option, the potential to do it. But anyways, here's contract vehicles for American Sign Language. I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to do this a lot, by the way, zooming in, zooming out. The first thing I do when I get to this tab is I want to come in and I want to sort. I'm on the contract vehicles. I want to sort by the ordering period. And so right now I'm sorted by the end date. This means when's the last time the government could order off of this contract vehicle. And by doing that, I'm able to start backing out. And what I'm really trying to find, let me come over here a little bit. What I'm really trying to find is contract vehicles that are about to expire that I can go after. So let's start scrolling down here till 2024. So here, I'm looking at the first one I see is this contract vehicle in June 2024. So I'm going to, the first thing I'm doing is sorting it and coming down to the ones that I still have a chance of maybe getting on. By the way, and you can use the same process to find teammates. I'm not teaching that today, but I could go in and just try to join all of these people's teams. All of these people in the second column are companies that have won the vehicles I wish I had. So I want to confirm that I got the results I was looking for. So if I come over, you can see this description column. They're all, almost all of them are sign language. And as you come up, you can just see they're all related to my keyword search. And so if I come all the way to the right, I can see where this is coming out, right? The awarding agency, et cetera. And I can see most of these are BPAs, blanket purchase agreements, which is fine. Let me move this again. Takes me a second to drag. I got a touch screen. I'm going back and forth. Okay, so now I'm looking at these and they all look good. So now I can start going in and figuring out which ones do I think I like. So let's just go into a couple really quick. I'm going to grab that guy. I'll take one at a time. One of the things I like to do in my training is not make it perfect before I come in. I like to have you see where I try to go in somewhere and then I come back out. I go in somewhere and I come back out. That way you understand that it's difficult for all of us to find what we need. But if you're persistent and you just keep coming back to the data, you'll find the contract vehicles you're looking for. So the first thing I'm looking here at is I can see the ordering period, for example, ends 2027. I'm coming down. I'm like, all right, $6 million in sign language. That's phenomenal considering many of the orders are in the $10,000 to $50,000 range at the high level. So having a vehicle like this is really cool. And I can see how much is being spent in here. And so I like that. I'm going to keep coming down now. And here I'm just confirming that I like this. But basically, I don't need to look at a lot because American Sign Language is not like software development. If this said software development, I might say, well, is that Amazon cloud? Is that Microsoft cloud? But sign language is sign language is sign language, right? It's much easier to look and go, that's a fit for our company to look at and pursue further. So I can see here, it's with the Social Security Administration. One of the agencies that I would steer away from is the Department of Veterans Affairs because my customer who does this work is woman-owned and 8A, and they're not SDVO. I wouldn't even waste my time knocking on VA's door because it's hard enough for a veteran to knock on the door competing against all the SDVOs. And I know they might dismiss that, but it's so much easier for my customer to go somewhere else. And there's a lot of agencies out there. So here I'm coming down, I can see the options. And the last thing I wanted to see as I'm pursuing this, and by the way, this one looks good. So I would write it down. I would take this link away. And right now I'm just trying to find a bunch of unqualified ones that look good. I will come back later and qualify them. But I already did this, but I can look in and see it's the Social Security Administration. It's coming right out of their contracting shop, the Office of Acquisition. But what I really wanted to see is like, what's the recipient as I come down? So I'm looking at this. This is an 8A joint venture that won this contract. And I can see what was the the competition like. So here it was fairly decent. It was an 8A competed, and that's pretty good. So when I look at this, I'm like, all right, the chances of really pursuing this is good. One other thing I wanted to show you is when I look, let me come back up to these guys. When I find a company like this, and I'm going to come back and to the big list in a minute, but when I find a company like this, I said, I go chase down the competitor and I learn from them. Well, this particular company looks like it's doing all right. And so I'm going to click and say, show me more. And I can see they did 5 million in the last 12 months. Right here, it says trailing 12 months at the top. And I'm just going to change it really quick and say in all fiscal years, how have they been doing? And I can see they've done $8 million. And I want to go see what have they won. And so right here, I can come in and I can see a lot of their interpreting services. I can see that contract vehicle. This is the one that they won. And I bet if I clicked on this, these are all calls on that same vehicle. So let me come all the way over. These are all Social Security. So this was a contract vehicle. Even though 2027 is like 1, 2, 3 years out, I would still put this on the radar. It's a multi-million-dollar contract vehicle. And it was an 8A competitive. This JV will be gone. And so I will start trying to pursue it. It doesn't take a lot of my energy year after year to pursue something. It's on my radar. I want to follow up. And I'll talk more about that in a minute. So let me close this and come back to the this list. So I picked one vehicle there, right? And you can see where I start choosing some others. There's different ways I can search. I searched on American Sign Language, and I found a bunch of contract vehicles. But I could also search on, I got to remind myself, what is CART? So right here, let me just grab this. So if I grab that guy and I do a different search, but I'm going to search by keyword again. And in this case, I'm putting parentheses around the outside so that it just comes back with those terms. And now I'm searching for something called communication access real-time translation. And this is basically, I'm paraphrasing it here or summarizing it, but it's basically an electronic tool that really helps with the translation when the dialogue between two people or many people is sophisticated, like science and biology, et cetera. The typical interpreter wouldn't be able to handle that as much. But these machines can really help out. So anyways, long story short, I'm able to look at this. This is different than the other one. And I can see there's 4 contract vehicles that might be interesting to me. And it turns out there's only one because the other 3 have already expired. But if I come over here, sometimes I can use that scroll bar and sometimes not. Here I can use it and I can start coming over and I can see Department of Defense. This is at WHS and it's a BPA, but it's for those CART services I was looking at. And if I scroll down really quick to the description, this is interesting though. There's no money, so that's always kind of a flag for me. But I still want to look at that and go, well, who's doing it? So here's the description, right? American Sign Language. I don't know what Pigeon just seems wrong the way I'm saying it, but I don't know what that is. I'd be curious to learn. Is that a keyword we're not paying attention to? And then there's CART providers. And so this is an agency that's looking for it. And I can go back to these people and begin to find them. By the way, really quick tip, and it's high level, but I've taught you how to do this in previous training. I would come back and take some of this information about this contract opportunity. I would come back and take this contract opportunity right here, this number, and go over to FPDS and try to learn more about it. And I can find a contracting officer that I can call. So you can always chase them down. Let me show you one more way in here. So remember I said you got to be careful with the interpreting services, or excuse me, the keywords and the NAICS codes. If I searched on NAICS codes, the NAICS code for this is 541. No, I forgot what it was. 930, I think. There it is. 541930. If I search this, the problem with this is it's the main NAICS code that is used for sign language, but it's also used for all this other interpreting services like language, where we're trying to do translation languages from Spanish or I almost said from England because they're so foreign, but French, Spanish, whatever. And so that's a different type of interpreting. That's why I don't like NAICS codes. And this is why I was telling you, make sure you do figure out what you're looking for. But some NAICS codes are pretty good. So if I get rid of this guy really quick, and instead I put in 541611, which is administrative support services, right? I can come in here and say, I know my customer is looking for administrative support contract vehicles. And there's just a slew of them, right? And I can filter down by the time period. But if I just sort really quick, when I sort these contract vehicles, and I'll show you in 1 second, let me just get it sorted. I'm able to look in here and you see these vehicles going out pretty far. And that just means they're 10-year vehicles. But let me come down a little bit towards the modern future, the short-term future. Okay, so we're still at 2030, 2029. There's a lot of vehicles that are out there. I might pause at this and just go to the right. This last guy. Okay, well, let me just hold it. Come on. Well, there's two. Oh, you know what? Sometimes it happens and I go back. No, I thought I went back to the contract vehicle. I didn't. So if I scroll over though, what I'm looking for is administrative support services that we can do. This is supporting the finance office, legal office, HR, et cetera. So that kind of work, it's pretty straightforward. And so as I start looking through here, you can just see all of these different vehicles that are in there. And if I start coming up, you can see some of them are GSA type vehicles. Let me see where I'm at here if I lost it. Wait, let me go up here. Well, anyway, so you can start seeing that. Let me just tie it into just pure admin, administrative. Wow, so that one was a little tight. I tried to search on the NAICS code and the word, and it didn't work out for me. But this is live training. You get my point, though. One of the things I wanted to highlight last, just on the search that I was doing, it's really important for you to understand this part. Remember, I did American Sign Language. American Sign Language. I don't want to go away without showing you this tip. If I come into looking at all these vehicles, I can scroll them one at a time. But something else I can do in USA Spending is come over to categories. And right here it says spending by. If you hit the drop down, I can see recipients, and it's telling me who is winning this work. And I can begin to look at my competitors and go see what opportunities they're winning, what vehicles they're on around sign language in this case, or software development or construction. It doesn't matter. You can do it all in here and you can find them. Okay, so let me come back. I just want to really quickly tell you how you do multi-year plan. Just give you these 4 steps. Do what I suggested, right? Go back and watch this video and see how I do it. I might try to lay out some steps in a newsletter article, but choose the contract vehicles you wish you had won. Get them into your pipeline as an unqualified opportunity, meaning you like them, but you haven't done enough research to see if they're going to continue, et cetera. And then gather their previous RFP, the request for proposal documentation. You want to grab it and look at it to see if that task area matches the title. That's when you begin to qualify an opportunity. And from that, you can create a capture plan that says, hey, over the next months or years, this is what I'm going to do to try to pursue and win that contract vehicle. And it begins with starting to build those relationships, obviously with a small business specialist, but with a contracting officer, who's the program office, who's the core. You have the time when you look out 6, 12, 24 months to be able to build those relationships. Here's what I want you to do from today's training, just something to keep in mind. First thing is search your criteria in USA Spending. Just go see what it's like and hit that second tab for IDVs, the vehicles. The second thing is study those competitors of yours. See what they're winning. And then the third thing is put together a list of just 5 contract vehicles that look like they're expiring in the next couple of months, 6 months before the end of this fiscal year, and start pursuing those and see if you can get on those. Some of those BPAs can be won by companies that are doing $5 million or less or $1 million, right? If it's your sweet spot and it's a BPA or a vehicle that fits right in that sweet spot, the chances of you winning are more likely than when you try to go for those really big contract vehicles. All right, so just quick training there. We're at our time. So remember, government contracting and finding contract vehicles, it's not a secret. It's just a process. I'll see you in the next training.